Hi, my name is Jennifer Matos. I'm the Executive Director of the Noah Webster House and West Hartford Historical Society, and I'm bringing you the 12th edition of our Armchair Tour of West Hartford history. I'm on the corner of the intersection of Farmington Avenue and Pleasant Street, and the site I'm standing on was actually the former home of a man named John Braxton Robinson. J. Braxton Robinson was born in 1847 in Virginia, and we believe that he was actually born enslaved on a plantation there. At the age of 16 in 1863, the Union Army had come to his part of Virginia, and J. Braxton actually escaped from the bonds of slavery and joined the army that was there, and it happened to be the Connecticut, the 22nd Connecticut Regiment. So he joined the Connecticut Regiment, and he actually headed back to Connecticut with them that summer. That summer, the 22nd actually mustered out, and he joined a New York regiment before joining the U.S. Infantry. As a member of the U.S. Infantry, he actually fought in 5 battles and 12 skirmishes, and was actually wounded in battle in 1864, and then eventually discharged in 1865. Then J. Braxton comes to live in West Hartford. So in 1868, he moves here to West Hartford. In 1871, he marries a woman named Lucy from Massachusetts, and together they raise their 3 children here at a home at 1070 Farmington Avenue. Of course, the home no longer stands, but this is the relative site of where that house would have been. It was actually next to the trolley car house. So back in the days when a trolley ran along Farmington Avenue, there was a car house next to the Robinson house, which is where they would have kept spare trolley cars when they needed to replace them. The story of J. Braxton Robinson is something that we're still trying to learn more about. We know from census records that he worked as a laborer, and then eventually worked as a fish vendor, where he would actually have a horse-drawn carriage that he would take around town into the surrounding communities to sell the fresh catch of the day. His wife Lucy did piecework from home. According to the 19 U.S. Census, J. Braxton is listed as the head of the household with his wife Lucy, his adult son Henry, who was working as a coachman, his adult daughter Mary, who was working as a laundress, and his mother-in-law, who was widowed and living with the family. Also of note in the census records was that all of the Robinson family could read and write, and it's presumed that the Robinson children would have attended school here in West Hartford, with the exception of the grandmother, Mary Robinson. She grew up in Massachusetts, was born in 1830, and she actually could read but not write. So kind of interesting to see the difference between the generations of families. J. Braxton lived here until 1918, when he passed away at the age of 70. He's buried in the cemetery right down the street on Pleasant Street, Fairview Cemetery, and his gravestone is actually honored with a flag and a plaque that bears witness to the fact that he is a Civil War veteran, and he fought in active battle in the Civil War. And we probably wouldn't have known much about J. Braxton Robinson had not we come across an article in the Hartford Courant in 1915. Tracy Wilson, the town historian, had actually come across this article commemorating the 50th anniversary of the Civil War, and it listed all of West Hartford's veterans who were considered to be important in business life in West Hartford, and J. Braxton was listed among them. And so we became very interested in him and wanted to learn more about his story, which is the result of the research that I'm sharing with you today. J. Braxton's story is so interesting to think about someone escaping from the South and settling here in West Hartford and making it their home. One reason I decided to share this story at this time was because this Friday is Juneteenth. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about Juneteenth. Probably some of you are familiar with it, so bear with me, but I wanted to go through a little bit of the history of what Juneteenth means. So basically, Juneteenth is June 19th, 1865, and that is the date when the last of the enslaved people in the United States learned of their freedom. And they learned of this in the area of Texas. So you know that Abraham Lincoln, the President of the United States, had issued the Emancipation Proclamation January 1st, 1863. But it's kind of a mystery as to why the people of Texas did not learn of this until 2 years later. There are theories that the slaveholders knew about it and simply ignored it, or they knew about it and thought they wouldn't do anything about it until some federal troops came to actually enforce the rule. There's a theory that the messenger who was to deliver the news to Texas was somehow killed or injured along the way and never was able to deliver the message. And there's also a theory that the federal troops actually worked out a deal with the plantation owners to wait until they could finish their last cotton harvest before they would enforce the rules. So regardless of why, we know that Texas was kind of this last area that was not abiding by the Emancipation Proclamation. So the United States troops came into Galveston, Texas, June 19th, 1865, to announce the news that slavery was ended and that everybody was free. The announcement had a pretty wide reaction. People were shocked, they were thrilled, they were ecstatic. They prayed and danced and sang and held community celebration. And from that point on, Juneteenth became an annual celebration, particularly in the African American community and starting in Texas. But what happened is, with the Great Migration of African Americans from the South to other areas of the country in the first half of the 20th century, Juneteenth moved and spread to the east, to the west, and particularly into the Midwest. Today, 46 out of 50 states actually celebrate Juneteenth as a state holiday, and Connecticut is one of them. Usually the President of the United States issues a proclamation or statement about Juneteenth, but it's not yet a federally recognized holiday. However, in 2019, the U.S. Senate actually drafted a resolution to make Juneteenth a federal holiday, and it's waiting for approval in the House of Representatives. So we'll see what happens with that. Even in Connecticut, we have a celebration. Different communities have many different celebrations. A notable one is put on by the Amistad Center of Art and Culture, which is in Hartford in the Wadsworth Athenaeum. They had to have a virtual event this year, and they're having a virtual Juneteenth gala this Friday on Juneteenth to celebrate and honor this piece of history. I should also tell you that even with Juneteenth and the troops coming to Texas to notify people of the Emancipation Proclamation, it didn't mean that slavery really ended everywhere in the United States. There were still territories that were part of the Union for whom which the Emancipation Proclamation was not legal for them, and so slavery continued in those areas until the 13th Amendment was ratified in 1865. And I should also note that even when African Americans were freed from slavery, it doesn't mean that they had the same opportunities as white people or were treated the same as white people. And I think, especially in this day and age, we're becoming more and more aware of the institutional racism in our country that has really negatively affected people of color. And that's one reason why a lot of the protests are going on right now. And in fact, I think with COVID-19, a lot of the regular Juneteenth celebrations are being canceled, but in place of them, you'll see, I'm guessing on Friday, some movements and some gatherings and some protests that will be also honoring Juneteenth as they fight against institutional racism and bias in our country and our state and in our community. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about Juneteenth and really tell you about J. Braxton Robinson, who I think has such a remarkable story to tell in our community. So if you're passing by the corner of Farmington Avenue and Pleasant Street, there is this very large tree on the corner, and it's plausible to me that this tree might have been around when J. Braxton Robinson was here. Maybe he planted it. Maybe he had his hands on it. It's kind of a neat way to connect to history when you see something that has lasted for a long time. And even if the house hasn't lasted, the space, this place, is still a place that J. Braxton Robinson lived for over 50 years here in West Hartford. So his house, I mentioned, was torn down. We think to make way for these brick apartment buildings, which were built in 1947. So we're still looking for a vintage image of the home. If anyone has ever come across anything, let us know. I'd also say, if you have any more information about the Robinson family, or anybody else in the community that you would like us to explore more and share more about, please contact us and let us know. Our job at the Noah Webster House and West Hartford Historical Society is to really tell the story of everyone in our community, and we really are striving to do that. And so we would love whatever information you have about a relative or something you came across in research. Just has to be related to West Hartford, and we would love to have it in our archives and possibly even do a future armchair tour about it. So thank you all for listening. Happy Juneteenth, and I will see you next week. Thank you.